Under the bleak gray skies of 19th century Kansas, where icy winds howled across the desolate prairie, stood a lonely wooden house, a spectral silhouette adrift in an ocean of endless grass. It was the dwelling of the Bender family, a name that, even whispered, sent chills down the spine, as if the darkness of hell itself was murmuring through every syllable. They were not just a family. They were a curse, a living nightmare. The press of the time dubbed them the most infamous killer family in American history. But before the earth was soaked in blood, before screams were carried off by the wind, their story began as a mystery, shrouded in a supernatural fog that pulled the soul into darkness, with every word spoken aloud. Kansas, 1872. A cursed land where law was nothing more than a fading idea. Bloody conflicts between opposing factions, capitalists, abolitionists, and lawless gangs, had transformed the state into bleeding Kansas, a battlefield with no victors, only corpses and the thick fog of vengeance blanketing the sky. Government was a myth. Police were a dream. Disputes were settled by knife or bullet. People survived in chaos, where a man's life was cheaper than a patch of land, and death could arrive with the silence of a stranger's gaze. But in that very chaos, Kansas became a promised land, a haven for those fleeing their past. The Homestead Act of 1862 opened the floodgates. For a small fee, anyone could claim 160 acres of land, a slice of heaven in the middle of hell. From the shadows of migration, the Bender family emerged. They quietly settled in southeast Kansas, near the town of Labette, like ghosts stepping out from another realm. There were 4 of them, but they did not seem to belong to this world. John Bender and his wife, Ma Bender, were a middle-aged couple with sunken eyes that had seen too many secrets that should have remained hidden. They spoke broken English, laced with a heavy, guttural German accent, as if their souls were trapped between 2 worlds. Their faces were chiseled in hardship, their smiles stiff and unnatural, the kind of smile that made your skin crawl, even before they spoke a word. The younger pair, Kate and John Jr., were an even deeper mystery. Siblings or something darker. Perhaps lovers, bound by a cursed fate. Kate, with her long black hair and dagger-sharp eyes, claimed to be a spiritual medium, a woman who could speak to the dead. Her voice was sweet, hauntingly so, like a lullaby whispered by a demon, irresistible to weary travelers who longed for connection with the beyond. John Jr., silent and brooding, lingered in the shadows like a predator waiting for the perfect moment. Their home doubled as a small inn and general store, a place that should have offered comfort, but instead radiated dread. From the outside it appeared modest, but inside, the air was thick with an unexplainable stench, as though the earth beneath the floorboards was rotting with secrets. Flies buzzed relentlessly, like lost souls trapped in a loop of torment, their wings beating in despair. Candlelight flickered weakly across the tables, only making the shadows seem deeper. And from every corner, it felt as though something unseen was watching you. Kate hosted séances, luring the desperate and the curious. When she closed her eyes and chanted her dark invocations, the room grew suffocating. It was as if the veil between the living and the dead had thinned, and something from the other side was listening. Those who stepped inside, charmed by her voice, lured by the promise of reconnecting with the dead, never realized they were walking into a trap, a death trap, where darkness did not only dwell in the corners of the room, but within the very hearts of the Bender family. In the darkness of the wooden house on the Kansas prairie, the Bender family wove a web of death, a place where flickering candlelight could never dispel the stench of decay. Every step taken by a weary traveler into their inn was a step closer to death, a descent into a vortex of brutality and the occult. Kate Bender, with eyes that shimmered like hellfire, played the role of the spiritual medium. Her soft whispers lured victims in, sweet as honey, deadly as poison. But behind that enchanting smile lay a cold-blooded plan, executed by the entire family, with the precision of demonic predators. Each séance was a perfect trap. Kate would invite the guest to sit, gently take their hand, close her eyes, and mutter strange incantations, as though opening a doorway to the other world. But as the victims slipped into a trance, believing they were moments from touching the soul of a lost loved one, the darkness in the room began to shift. From behind, John Bender, Ma Bender, or John Jr. would emerge silently, clutching a hammer or a crude sickle, its metal glinting in the candlelight. A swift, brutal blow to the head. The body crumpled. Blood spilled across the wooden floor. Their corpse would then be dragged beneath the bed, through a hidden trapdoor, a tunnel that led straight to hell. At night, when the prairie fell silent, the Benders would carry the bodies to the lush apple orchard behind their house, burying them under the soil, as if offering sacrifices to some dark, forgotten deity. Starting in 1871, lone travelers began to vanish. First, 3 men were found dead, bodies mutilated, all belongings and wagons gone, as if swallowed by the prairie itself. Locals blamed bandits, but the disappearances continued, a curse that grew stronger with every passing month. Over 6 months, the number of missing people rose steadily, but in lawless Kansas, no one cared enough to investigate. By 1873, the number of known victims had reached 10, including Dr. William York, a well-known figure, whose death finally forced the authorities to take notice. His brother Alexander York, a wealthy lawyer, vowed to uncover the truth. He hired detectives, followed every lead, and all trails led to the haunted home of the Bender family. Alexander confronted them, asking questions about his missing brother. Kate Eversly and John Jr. played the part of kind-hearted settlers, welcoming, gentle, so convincing that Alexander almost believed them. Almost. But Ma Bender's cold gaze, as if staring through his very soul, left him with a gnawing unease. The family knew they had been discovered. They didn't wait. That very night, they loaded their belongings onto a wagon and vanished into the darkness. What they left behind was an empty house, still reeking of death and vengeance. Their crimes, though not yet fully unearthed, had stained the prairie red, and the apple orchard behind their home, the final resting place of so many, seemed to whisper warnings to anyone who dared draw near. The darkness that once cloaked the Bender house did not vanish when they fled. Instead, it spread, like a curse haunting the Kansas prairie. A month after the Bender family disappeared in 1873, their absence sparked curiosity among the locals. Livestock were found emaciated, chickens lay dead from starvation. A kind-hearted neighbor named Miley entered the house to care for the abandoned animals. But what greeted him was not silence. It was a stench so foul, it felt as if the earth itself was bleeding. Miley alerted the township officer, Leroy, and with him came an investigation that would unearth a horror so vile it sent chills across all of Kansas. Leroy found 2 bloodstained hammers and a crude sickle, hidden in a pile of firewood, like relics left behind by demons. As the search party swept through the house, they discovered a secret trapdoor beneath the bed. Below it, a dark tunnel. The smell of death hit them like a wave. Dried blood streaked the path, leading downward into the unknown. But the true nightmare waited in the apple orchard behind the house. When they began digging, 8 bodies emerged from the soil. Among them, Dr. William York. Each skull was crushed, every body stripped of its belongings. Police reconstructed the method of murder. Kate would lure victims with her spiritual rituals. The others, John Sr., Ma Bender, and John Jr., struck from behind. Bodies were dumped through the trapdoor and buried beneath the orchard. Their motive? Pure greed. Cash, clothes, horses. Nothing was left untouched. Everything was stolen, then sold. Authorities launched a manhunt. A $2,000 reward was posted for information on the Benders, but the bounty was meager, and time became their greatest ally. Rumors spread that the family had fled to Dallas, Texas, or into lawless tribal territories, places untouched by justice. Some claimed Kate disguised herself as a man, going by the name, the Devil, living among bandits and killers. Bounty hunters and detectives who followed their trail vanished without a trace, as if the prairie had swallowed them whole. A detective in Arizona, a bounty hunter in Kansas, both gone. Only ghost stories remained, tales of the Bender family turning to legend, or perhaps something far worse. The ultimate fate of the 4 remains an unsolved mystery. No one knows if they died, or simply disappeared into the fog of time. The blood-soaked house was torn down shortly after. Today, the land is reportedly worth $2.2 million, yet no one can pinpoint its exact location. Though the years have passed, the Bender crimes still stain American history, a black mark that will not fade. The orchard, once lush and green, still seems to whisper with the voices of the dead, and every gust of wind on the Kansas plain carries with it a cry for help from forgotten souls. The Benders were not merely murderers, they were darkness made flesh, a horror story etched in memory. And it leaves us asking, has their curse truly ended? Or is it still waiting, in the shadows, to rise again?